Welcome to the Great Birth Rebellion podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Melanie Jackson. I'm a clinical and research midwife with my PhD, and each episode I cast a critical eye over current maternity care practice by grappling with research and historical knowledge to help you get the best out of your pregnancy, birth, and postpartum journey. Welcome to today's episode of the Great Birth Rebellion. I'd love to introduce Amy Honus, who is the founder of the Village Community. The Village Community is a community initiative which aims to fill the gap left by society in the care of mothers in the early postpartum period. And this gap is so often filled with paid and hired help rather than by the collective. We spoke about how some cultures care for women in the first 40 days postpartum during our episodes 89 and 40 and 90 with wise woman Sarah Smits, but also this level of care and attention is not part of modern Western culture. So Amy's initiative is an incredible example of practical ways that we can bring back the village culture in the care of women postpartum. And I want to showcase what Amy is doing and inspire other rebels out there who have a passion for repairing the collective motherhood journey. I'm going to ask Amy all about the details and the nitty-gritties of getting something like this off the ground so that if you feel so inclined, you can replicate it in your own communities. Thank you for being here, Amy.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
You're here in the Blue Mountains with me, which is where we live, New South Wales.
Yeah.
So first, you just introduce who you are.
Well, I'm Amy Honus. I'm a mother of two. I have a 4-year-old boy and a 2-year-old girl. I'm actually a teacher as well. And I live and work on Darug country in the Blue Mountains. And I'm the founder of the Village Community. So the Village Community is an organisation that collects donations of food, any type, mainly cooked meals. And these donations of meals go to a family, usually a mother who's just birthed or a mother in any struggling season of her parenting world. Yeah.
And do you get paid to do this?
No, not really. I have just recently, in the last 6 months or so, I've asked for cash donations when somebody is nominating a loved one to receive this service. And yeah, that doesn't really go to me. That purely goes straight back into the donations themselves and straight back into whatever's being given to that mother that week.
Mm-hmm. How do people nominate somebody who is deserving of this service?
Yeah, it's really simple. All they need to do is contact me through the Village Community's Instagram and just through my messages. Probably about a year ago, I did create a form that they could fill out, but it's still just sitting there, just kind of sitting there in the world of online clouds. But I can't really put myself to publish it yet because I really enjoy connecting with other women and other people who are nominating their loved ones. And I feel like that form takes the human contact out of that.
And is it working to be receiving things by a messenger?
Yes, so far it is receiving. Sometimes it does get a bit hectic because I am still being mum to running my household and I am still working part-time. Sometimes it can be really overwhelming, but in the most part it's okay at the moment. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When did you decide that this service needed to happen?
Well, I guess it always starts with your own story, right? So it began with my firstborn. When I was pregnant with Jack, when I was pregnant with Jack, I was gifted by one of my best friends the 4th trimester book. And that really opened my eyes to, I think that was my first understanding of the 4th trimester. Like I don't think I've really even heard that term before. So that was my first learning of what the 4th trimester is and then what that looked like in other cultures as well. And I was so excited. I was so excited and so naive. I just thought, I can't wait for my postpartum and all of this magical, beautiful nourishment being gifted to me in my early postpartum. Like I was so excited. But also the naivety is that I didn't communicate that or I didn't voice it to anyone in my close village, my own village. I didn't communicate that or disclose it. It was kind of just assumed that it happened. So my birth came and went and then the postpartum period was there. I had the support from my mum who was down visiting but she was only there for a few days. Yeah, and then it just came and went and everything kind of just moved on. Nothing really came from it. So I was a bit confused, but I'm also a pretty easygoing person that I didn't really think too much of it. Then my partner went back to work and life started to happen. And the whole shock the shock of being a new mum, not understanding, I was still not aware of matrescence. I hadn't heard that term yet. So I was still just in complete shock of how hard parenting is and how hard being a mum is. And then I remember going to meet with a friend and my baby, so Jack was probably about 6 or 8 months by now, and I went to meet her and her baby was 3 months old or a little bit under. And as she was holding her newborn, she still had to like cradle the head because the neck was still not strong enough. She then told me that she was pregnant again. And my heart just dropped and my tummy, I just remember that whole feeling of being like, how the hell is she going to have 2 babies? If I feel like this, if I'm struggling this deeply with 1 baby, how is she going to do it with 2? So that was kind of my motivation, and that was my light bulb switch to be like, I need to do something to support her. Not that she needed help, not that she was asking for help, but I just knew that it's so hard. She's going to have 2 babies, and they were born within the 12 months of each other. So I just freaked out, and I went home and I drew up a little mind map of what support I could create or what something might look like. And I remember putting the village community in the middle, and drew a bubble just like I would at school and drew ideas from it. And I remember sharing that with a group of close friends, just a photo, and I said, what do you think of this? And I received beautiful feedback, of course, and that was kind of where it ended. And the idea was there, and I put it out into the world, and then it kind of ended until another friend had a baby, and somebody who saw that picture reached out to me and said, hey, can you start the village community? Give me some food. Let's give her some food. So then it kind of just stemmed from that.
What did you learn from that 4th trimester book? What did that book describe?
Yes. Well, first it describes how mothers need to be looked after just as much as the newborn. And they require that rest. They require to stop and slow down. And the people around them, their community or their close village, they should be the ones stepping in to do those nitty-gritty things like cooking food, tidying up the house, putting washing on, all those little bits that feel so strenuous after you've just birthed and you have a newborn baby. Yeah, so I guess hearing about the other cultures and how they step in and how they had a ritual or they had practices in place that support a mother who's just birthed, and how they have either their mother living with them or they have a hired person that lives with them to do all the cooking and to do all the cleaning, and they support them in their journey with getting to know baby. And like South America has their practices, India has their practices, Indonesia has beautiful practices too. But yeah, there's nothing in the Western society. Even when you put into Google, what is the Western society or Australians' postpartum practices, it just comes up with all the government policies or some services that might support you in postpartum. There's no actual cultural practice that we have in our country that supports women who have just birthed. It doesn't even exist, really. And even I loved listening to your episode on Aboriginal cultures and practices, because I've been struggling so much to find research papers or anything to do with Aboriginal culture and their practices around postpartum, birthing. It's so hard to find any research. But yeah, so I loved listening to that because it finally gave us something to like hold on to and to hear and to know and to use within our practices as well. That we know that doing these sorts of practices that maybe come from Chinese medicine or that come from Ayurvedic practices, they're still connecting with our Aboriginal culture too.
I think what you've tapped into is that other cultures have a norm around what they do for women postpartum that involves nurturing and feeding and caring and understanding that it's a unique transition in life. And we just glaze over that in Western culture because we're living in these individualistic bubbles. We don't value community living like a lot of these other cultures do. And it makes sense that, of course, you've done this massive thing to have a baby, grow a baby, have a baby. Even just physically, it's a mammoth effort.
Yeah.
And so then the emotional transition and being sleepless and then still being expected to maintain life amongst all that is really unrealistic. And then we wonder why women struggle through parenthood and then blame themselves for some reason. But actually, society is to blame for most of our maternal struggles. It sounds like what you're doing is just trying to develop a culture of caring for women postpartum in a Western context because we've lost it.
Yeah, because there literally isn't really a cultural thing. There's no cultural practice on how do we care for our women. And the research tells us that when women are supported in those early postpartum periods, that their mental health will do better. It may not do great, but it will do better than what it would do if they had no support. So supporting someone in their early postpartum period is only going to benefit them for a lifelong good mental health. Yeah, on that as well. And I think it's Chinese medicine or if it's Ayurvedic practices, but they believe that if a woman is fully nourished in those first 40 days after birth, that not only supports her in the short term, but that goes on to support her for a whole life, and her womb health will be good for the rest of her life, like even into menopause. If she was well supported in her early postpartum period, that's not only supporting her and her baby now, but when she goes through her menopause, another huge life transition, that's supposed to ease the hardship of menopause as well. She was supported in her postpartum. So wild that in the Western culture, they don't recognise that as valuable to support women. Yeah.
No, because we have a very medicalized way of caring for the body. We don't have a social or cultural way of caring for the body. And we don't believe in plant medicine or anything that's alternative to that, unfortunately. And I think when we start to demand postpartum care of women, at the very least, that's us learning from other cultures what we don't have. This is a way of identifying a social gap what we have in our Western culture. We know it's making us unwell in so many ways, but also unwell in parenthood and motherhood. So what we know then about your service is obviously it's definitely needed.
Yes.
The whole practice is rooted in healthful cultures who look after women postpartum. And so you work part-time, but you do this work under a volunteer capacity.
Yes.
So just so people know, this is not necessarily something you'll get paid for if you decide to continue this, but there are a lot of postpartum doulas around who are able to draw an income from this kind of work with the real practical help of women and making meals and everything. So women can do that.
Yeah.
I suppose the uniqueness of your service is that it's free to women. But I feel like you're paying, in a way, you're paying for this care that the women are getting with your time and with your energy and with your effort.
Yes, but yeah, passion keeps it going. Yeah, and the love for it keeps it going. But I think it is opening up all these other avenues that I hope to go into as well. I feel like I'm the umbrella and the village comes off, part of it, and there's more coming. So yeah, the village community in the sense of the bulk meal donations, that's just part of what I want to be able to offer to the women in our community.
And who supports you in that? There must be other people involved.
In like the village?
The village, yeah. Who contributes? Who gives meals? Who makes meals? Who donates?
It's pretty much all other mothers, which is ironic because we want to make sure our mothers are all looked after, but it's other mothers who are looking after our own. But it is just women in the community who have just come across me through word of mouth or who are friends with somebody who's received a box. So yeah, it's women in the community. There are some men and some dads who are doing it as well, but its majority is the women in our community donating meals or baked goods or fresh produce, pantry staples, and also things that might support the mother in her postpartum period or the baby in their postpartum period or that early stage of life. So like nappies, wipes, beanies are being hand knitted, self-care packages for mama. Yeah, so there's the women in the community. And I have regular volunteers who will turn up, if not weekly, then fortnightly or monthly. And I also have a close connection to some businesses in the Blue Mountains who offer their ongoing support too. So there's some small businesses who are caterers and they donate or they offer a discount on their meals for people who don't have the time to cook a meal for a family themselves, but they can purchase these meals through these caterers. I've had the fruit and veg, the Blue Mountains Co-op. They were donating monthly a fresh box of produce as well. So I have some small businesses, women in our community and dads in our community, and that's pretty much really it. And I obviously have the support of my family, my beautiful partner, to keep it all going.
How many hours a week do you think you commit to this?
That is a good question. I've never documented it. I mean, I definitely have set days where I do things. Sometimes creating posts, social media is just such a time, energy draining. So I could spend an hour just writing one post. I want to make sure that it comes across correctly and that it's written right and that it just acknowledges the work of our volunteers and how important it is to support women in their postpartum. So there's that whole message that I'm trying to encapsulate in one post. I'm on there daily as well because I like to keep it active and I want to share things to help motivate people to continue to turn up for women, not only just for the village community, but for the women in their village as well. Yeah, so definitely a couple of hours a day. Yeah,
a couple of hours a day. That's what I was thinking. By the time you're posting, responding to messages, liaising with volunteers,
yes.
Collecting meals, delivering meals, because is it once a week that you would deliver?
Yeah, once a week I deliver meals.
Yeah. And you're a mum of two. And you work part-time. I guess I wanted to ask that because I just wanted people to know this is not 1 hour a week that you're giving.
Yes. It's not even about me or about the village community as a picture. It's about making this a worldwide, if I could make it worldwide. Yeah, definitely a domino effect into other communities, especially Western culture. If I just want this domino effect to then spread out so it becomes a norm to come together as a community to support women in our community. Because, we shouldn't be doing this alone. Way back when we were living in villages and we were with each other, supporting each other, mothering and parenting together. So it's just so disconnected now, being in that community sense. So I kind of have titled the village community is creating our modern day village, because that could be the beauty of social media is maybe we're not connecting as frequently in person, but if we're connecting through social media in a positive way, that's a good thing.
And I think it makes sense to me that other mothers are offering support, because traditionally that would have been what happened, but they would have been giving out of surplus because they were cared for.
Yes.
Whereas I think we think, wow, other mothers are looking after other mothers, because we think all the other mums are struggling just to do things for their own families. How have they got the energy to give to other families? But traditionally they would have had the energy because they were nourished themselves and they're not depleted like we are.
Yeah.
And so for people who are keen, if they want to start and replicate this service, what should their first step be?
Yeah, I struggle with this question because I've obviously had people from all over Australia who have contacted me to say, how did you start? I want to do this in my community. And I think the very first time that happened, I think my response was, I don't know, it just happened. I still have that same kind of answer that I guess it could only work if you keep it as a donation and really wanting to enrich the community spirit. It has to really come from your own passion and your own willingness to create this change in your community. Mine literally just started through Instagram, and everything that's come to me has come to me. I haven't really gone out to seek support. Just so privileged and so lucky to receive everything that's received and has come to us. And it's just, I think it's such a need that it will work anywhere, because from what I've learned by doing this, it is such a huge need in every community with every mum, especially mainstream communities, because they're hearing about this for the first time. So they're kind of hearing the words fourth trimester. They might be hearing matrescence for the first time. So this is so needed in all communities, not just the ones who are maybe perceived as a bit alternative. It's kind of needed everywhere. So to start,
yes, how do we start? I mean, I love it. You've got to. I think that's the philosophical groundwork that has to be done. It's got to start with this investment and belief that it's a fundamental need for our culture.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it first has to come from within, really. But I just created a separate Instagram page for my own personal one. So I first created a business page. And for that, I then started sharing. I would guess I was really loud with the need for this. So I was sharing the reasons why we need postpartum care, the reasons why we needed to do it in a community setting. And that kind of helped motivate people to connect with that. And of course, women and mothers who have been there before, they fully understand how important it is to nourish a newborn mum.
This is what I'm hearing. So my brain ticks really methodically in a business way. I'm putting together what you're saying in a dot point list for people who love that kind of stuff. So firstly, a passion and an acknowledgement that this is absolutely needed and that it's lacking in society. Then, you spoke about the mind map and how the idea first blossomed and then you wrote it down and shared it. That's a really important next step for people, is to say, I want to do this. I'm putting it on paper. I'm sharing it with the people around me. It kind of creates an accountability.
Yes.
And then somebody came up to you and said, hey, are you still doing that initiative? And then you're like, whoa, yeah, okay, let's do this. So there were like some little early steps that kicked it off.
Yes.
And then also acknowledging the time frame of that, because it sounds like there was a reasonable gap between the idea starting and when it blossomed fully.
Yes.
And so then it's the Instagram page. So anybody really, all that's kind of just marketing, letting people know that you exist and what you're doing. And so I'm imagining other ways that people could do that is if they're already connected with the birthing community and doulas and women's groups, mothers groups, actually going and pitching the idea to these people as well, and just doing a ring around and say, hey, I'm starting this service. If you're passionate about this, is there anything that you can contribute? And then letting it organically grow and flow out of the community could be a way to start.
Yes, and even starting in those small community groups that you might already be joining as well. If you're already in a mother's group and you notice that one mother is going through a hard time, maybe her baby's teething really badly and she's not getting any sleep, that's a key indication that she needs a bit of love and support. So maybe within your mother's group, you all come together to either do a meal train or a bulk meal drop for her.
Yeah.
So it might not necessarily be at the time of birth, but it may be at a time of a struggling time in motherhood as well.
Yeah, and I feel like you're serving a massive group, but it could be even on a more micro level, like within your friendship group, where you build a culture where if there's 5 of you who are in your childbearing years and one person has a baby, there's an expectation that the other 4 are going to rally, bring meals, there's some kind of cleaning up roster. And then if one person receives that, it's almost this reciprocal expectation that they all looked after me when I had my baby. And so that you set up an actual culture within your little micro communities.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be so wide. Like you've cast a wide net.
Yeah.
You could just, the permaculture principle of just starting at your own doorstep.
Yes. Yeah.
You don't know what to do next. Just like who close to you has a baby.
Yeah.
Just start there.
Yes. Just start there, and even start at, if you were attending the traditional baby showers, that's where you begin as well. You write down the names of all the attendees. I've been trying to, when I go to these, I put out a sheet for the meal train for the mum as well. So I make sure that if you're attending, write your name and your email and I'm going to contact you. So you can turn up after birth as well, because everyone's turning up. That's what's also weird in our Western culture, is that everyone's turning up to shower the baby in these baby showers, and the mother's completely forgotten about. So I think changing even that culture in the baby shower is you're not bringing a gift for the baby, or you can if the mother needs that, but also bring in something to add to a freezer, adding a meal to add to a freezer, or writing your name down on the meal train to turn up for her post-birth as well.
Yeah, you have just identified that that's what our culture does do. Everybody has a baby shower, don't they? And then when you arrive, there's a hideous amount of gifts and paraphernalia to look after the baby. And then we forget the mother And I mean, there are some subcultures, we do mother blessings.
Yes.
Where I'm from, where we don't throw a baby shower, we actually throw something that nurtures the mum.
Yes.
But there's no reason why a guest couldn't bring 2 or 3 freezer meals to a baby shower.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'm trying to change that to be like, look at what mother blessings can do for you as a mother, instead of throwing this baby shower that the mother to be is doing. She's putting all this energy into this huge celebration, and then that's just draining her energy, where she needs to keep holding on to that energy to grow her baby. And then that's also taking away what our culture needs to be doing. Is we need to be going there to mother blessings. We bring a plate of food and we add that to the table, and the mother does nothing. The whole idea of a mother blessing is she does nothing. We're beginning that first step of how we turn up for mum, how we hold her during her season of becoming a mother.
Yeah, I have a funny story to share about this.
Yes.
For my first baby, I decided to throw a massive party. I called it a mother blessing, but it wasn't really. I had lots of help, and my sister got someone to come and paint my belly, and it was all lovely. There was flowers, and it was this beautiful garden party.
Yeah.
And at the end, I was sitting at home. Everybody had left, and my husband was still out because we sent all the boys away. And I was sitting there, and all the stuff was still set up. I thought when Dan gets back, he can pack all of this up. But I was sitting there just chilling out with my belly out, painting, feeling like I was all dressed up with nowhere to go. And it started pouring rain, and I realized all of these soft furnishings and pillows and blankets were outside. And so the end of my mother blessing, this was 11 years ago, ended up with me running through the rain, collecting all of the stuff from the party, and my beautiful belly paint just kind of dripping down onto my clothes. And I remember thinking, what is going on here? I'm all alone, fully pregnant, packing up after a party that I realized in that moment didn't really serve my needs at all. And I was all really sad about it. It was a bit of an anticlimax.
And even when you had the intention to not have the traditional baby shower, it's still those little details of supporting mum was lost. Yeah,
and at no fault. It wasn't like there was nobody there to help me. There were so many people who helped on the day, but just all happened to be gone in that moment. And it was just this really poignant moment where I was like, I'm all dressed up. I've got a flower crown on and a beautiful belly painting, so Instagrammable, but just still not served in that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you have a strategy for motivating people to donate and participate? Like, do you feel like you're constantly chasing people to help with this stuff?
No, not really. If anything, people are asking me where they can donate. Yeah, so not really, because I have in moments of, I should make this more legit, more streamlined. There's some parts of me that think I could make this a bit bigger. But then also, if I was to take it a bit bigger, then I think I'd be taking away what it means to serve your community, because then there'll be a cost to that. And I don't really want a cost, because when you look after each other, you don't really pay for that. You just have to turn up and look after people. So there are times where I think, I could go to different businesses and ask for them to donate, however much they would like to, monthly, fortnightly, on a yearly basis. But no, I haven't really needed to yet go the distance of asking for support. Even just me asking for the donation fee when you nominate someone was a huge thing for me. I never wanted to put any money onto this service, because I don't believe that if we're looking after each other, we're just looking after each other. So I just wanted that to be the message. But at the end of the day, I was still, I still travel to deliver the food. So I'm using my own petrol, and I would go out and I still cook a meal for each family. And I would add bits and pieces to the box if I felt like something was lacking. So I was out of pocket. So I had that reinforced, yes, I'm worthy of putting a donation fee to this. And actually because I have a minimum donation fee, and yes, most people pay above the minimum as well. So that's also lovely. So it's definitely a service that people respect, I guess, and they really value it.
Those feelings of, could I get bigger with this, and I could contact way more people and I could serve way more people. I think you're right. It doesn't serve the intention if we're aiming for cultural change.
Yeah.
All it does is you taking a bigger piece of that pie responsibility for that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't give other people permission to identify the same gap and fill it in their own worlds. Like, this should be on a micro level.
Yes. Yeah. And you're right. Yeah. If I was to, because all it would be if I did make it a bit bigger, it would just be another business, another like catering. Not there's anything wrong with catering, but it would just turn into another catering business for postpartum women. I want to keep it as simple as possible, like even to the point that, because I'm always asking for advice and I'm always asking for a little bit of feedback, and some people have suggested that maybe I can put the food in these really beautiful boxes and I deliver it and it looks really lovely. And that would be nice, but then that's also a cost. And then that's also taking away, again, the natural thing of just looking after one another. So I just deliver in, I just grab a box from my fruit and veg shop and I just pile things into the box, or I get the cooler bags from the op shop.
Yeah.
I just put things in the cooler bag because it's not meant to be a pretty, like if I wanted to, it would be a pretty looking service, but that's not what it's about. Sending off a beautiful package, because the package in itself, a warm cooked meal, is the intention to serve that mum. It's not about receiving a beautiful looking, because at the end of the day, that's it's a bit toxic, the Instagram culture. Just everything has to look beautiful and has to be beautiful, and then what's inside maybe wouldn't be as fulfilling. But what I really want to showcase is these meals are enough. We don't need to make them look pretty. We don't need to dress it up. The meals and the idea about donating is enough.
Yeah. Yes. And then instead of growing bigger in a sense of how can I get more food to distribute to more people, the intentionality could be how can I inspire more people to do the same thing as what I'm doing?
Yes.
And then they can replicate this model in the same way that you have.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's that real temptation to optimize and streamline and get business minded about this, but this is the root of it is cultural change.
Yeah.
And counteracting some of the toxic cultural expectations that we have around parenthood and motherhood and caring for other people. So I wanted to ask you if you feel like what you're currently doing is sustainable for you.
Well, a little backstory is when I first began this, so it's been going for about 3 years. So when I first started, it only lasted 4 months because then I paused for pregnancy and birth of my second born. But that 4 months, I looked after 52 families in 4 months, and that is crazy. That was not sustainable. That system that I was doing then, that would not be sustainable because I didn't know how to say no. I didn't know my boundaries, and I was saying yes to everyone who needed help. I would say yes. And, there was not 1 week that I only looked after one family on a weekend. The most that I looked after was 5 families in 1 weekend. And that was my whole weekend gone. I couldn't be a mum. I was delivering. And I used to also drive to every volunteer's home to collect the food because I wanted it to be as easy for people to donate as possible. So I was literally going to pick up all the meals and then I was bringing it all back home. I was organising the meals and then I was going to deliver to the families. And that was multiple families I was delivering to on that day. So that was not sustainable at all. And that 1.5 year break or however long I stopped for was a nice realization that was too much and that was just going to burn me out really. So now I just do 1 family weekend. And sometimes I might do 2 depending on the need of that family. Sometimes people are going through a harder time and they need something immediately. So in those cases, I will do 2 families a week. But yeah, doing 1 family a week is much more sustainable, and that way that family receives way more food because the idea is to fill their freezer with all these nourishing meals to serve them, if not for a week, for longer, minimum a week. I make sure that I have a minimum amount to serve them for a week. Yeah, so I think for as long as people are willing to donate, because I really literally wouldn't be able to do this without volunteers. If I was doing this all on my own, there was no volunteers helping, it wouldn't be possible. Because 1, I don't have the time, I don't have the money, and that would just purely drain me out. And then that's probably when it would turn into a catering service. that's when I would move away from volunteer work.
Because you would need to be it would need to be more financially viable and to pay for your time and energy.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, I mean, if you ask my partner, he would say, no, this is not sustainable because it's not supporting us as income-wise for a family. But my perception of it is that it is sustainable because what's happening right now is working. It's not draining me. I still have my whole weekend. I've changed the system that I don't do any pickups for donations anymore. Everything comes to me, or there's locations all the way up from the mountains down to Penrith if people can't reach me personally. I should have said that earlier. Yes, there's different collection points from, all the way out to the top of the mountains and all the way down into Penrith, and sometimes in the Hawkesbury region. So then, I've set up a space downstairs under my house where people can access, so I don't even need to be home for them to drop off a meal. So they can just drop it straight into the fridge, or they can put it on the shelves. So in that sense, it's working without me really needing to be here, except the presence of social media and then the behind the scenes stuff too. But, everything, all the donations can come without me being home. And that's been through a big learning as well, because I used to always ensure that I was home to receive the donations, because at first it was just coming straight into the house. But yeah, once I realised that I needed a village fridge and some shelving for the village too downstairs, that's been even more weight lifted off me as well. Yeah.
So there's a village fridge. Does it have a freezer too if you need to store freezer?
Yeah.
So committed freezer, fridge and shelving. Yeah. And so volunteers know that if they've got a meal, they virtually don't even have to contact you. They just drop it in the fridge. Have you got rules around labelling and, what's in the food?
Yes.
And they have to can you tell us about that?
Yes, that's a good point. Yeah, so everything needs to be labelled and dated of when it was cooked, because I always tell the family who's receiving that they can freeze it all for 3 months. That's the time frame. So first they need to make sure that what they're packaging the food in is freezer friendly. So unfortunately, I still haven't figured out a nice way to be eco-friendly around that. But so a container to be freezer friendly, clearly labelled with all the ingredients that you've put into the meal and the date of when you've cooked it as well. Those are all the basics of what needs to happen. And every week it's always clearly noted if there's any dietary needs of that family too. So if there are dietary needs, that's an extra reminder when I'm responding to messages, just to be clear that this family's gluten-free, or, no dairy, or things like that.
When you get the inquiry, so people nominate somebody, do you have to, is there a point where you have to sort of triage who's been nominated and select who's going to get the donation that week?
Yeah, so it kind of just falls into line of who's, it's like first in best dressed, I guess. It just all falls into line, and I'm usually 2 weeks or 3 weeks booked out. But say that I've already got someone in on that weekend that I'm supporting. If someone says my friend, is going through a really hard time right now, I'll squeeze them in. So I guess there's a scale of how that family's doing. If it's just my family's birthday baby, that just falls into line of, when the next availability is. But if it's somebody who's, a early birth, or they've lost their baby, I'll do an immediate delivery to them.
Yeah. I'm trying to extract all these finer details so that when people are really setting this up, they're setting it up in a way that isn't, I guess they don't have to make the early mistakes that you made.
Yeah.
And that you realised, wow, I've overdone it. And gosh, I don't really want to be home to collect all these.
Yes.
With the drop-off points, are they just volunteers who've agreed to collect food?
Yeah, they're just people who have been regular volunteers, or even friends of mine who have offered to be the collection point pretty much. And then once they've collected the meal, all the meals that are being dropped off to them, then they do a one drop off to me. So it all eventually comes to me. Yeah.
Yes. Have you ever had an issue, like a complaint or food poisoning, or somebody like?
Yeah, it's something that I'm very aware of. I'm so aware, and I'm so grateful that nothing negative has come from this yet. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only, I mean, the fact that there's no money being exchanged and it's volunteer is quite protective
Yes.
in that sense. Again, I'm really thinking with a business mindset here, but I realize that's not the way it should be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just sort of, anticipating what could go wrong with
Oh,
this.
and that's my thought too. And even, if somebody, because sometimes I have people who offer to deliver the meals to the family. Yeah. So I'm even thinking about that as well, about, well, if they're delivering and something happens to them during that time, what does that look like from a insurance front? Like, I don't have any money if something happens to cover them within my insurance. Like, I don't really have insurance, so
there's no public liability. Yeah, like if they're delivering a meal and then the dog bites their leg or something, anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, that's very Western way of thinking. It's not a community way of thinking. If I visited my friend and I tripped on their front step and I broke my knee,
yes,
it's just, oh, well, that's what life is about.
Yes.
Whereas if I was doing that for work, I would have, workers' compensation and sick leave and all these fancy things.
And the risk assessment just for all the cases. Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Funnily, you've said that, though, because we were delivering food during COVID and during the lockdowns of COVID. And there was a time that, like, the lockdowns got kind of serious, and I myself, I'm a classic people pleaser. I didn't know what to do, and I kind of said, oh, let's just wait it out. I don't know what, let's just put a pause on the village. And people were like, no, this is when people need this care the most. And I was like, oh, thank gosh, somebody else said it. Because sometimes I get really passionate about things. One of my brothers calls me the angry Buddha. Because I get so passionate about all these beautiful ideas that I come across as angry, maybe. So, yeah, I was worried that in the COVID scenarios that maybe it was just my deep passion that people should still be supported. So it was good that people came back with feedback and they said, no, keep going. And thankfully, we were in the Blue Mountains, so we had this whole huge area we could travel in. But even that was a bit funny, I felt like I was sneaking off to give food to people, or I had one of my best friends, she lives outside of the Blue Mountains, and she came to give food, and that also felt a bit hush-hush, it was a bit, that felt really naughty. Yeah, so yeah, it was kind of like, a rebel against the COVID rules, yeah.
Well, that's what was needed at that time. I mean, for everybody, but more so for women having their babies who were completely parenting alone with no support and the stress of COVID. I mean, I could see it being even more important at that time. I'm glad you kept it going, and I would have counted that as an essential service.
Well, that's what that's when if anybody asked me, and are you allowed to do this? And I just said, I read the guidelines and I said, well, we are essential because we're delivering for someone in need. So that was my argument. Yeah.
Well, if there was somebody elderly, for example, who needed support, you would be allowed to go and do that. And this is another time of vulnerability in our lives.
Mm.
Well, I have one final question, and that is, what do you need to keep this going?
Yes, I just need volunteers to continue to turn up. That's the core of it, I guess. Yes. The core of the village working is the volunteers who keep continuing to turn up and to cook. Cash donations are helpful because that just improves what is delivered to the family. Everything that is donated to me goes straight back into caring for the families, and then also caring for the volunteers as well. I've got a section under my house that the volunteers can help themselves to some canned items or things that they might need as well for their family, or to help them to cook further for the next family in the village if they choose to continue. So, yeah, all of this cash doesn't really, I don't see it. It's more just to build, to continue to create a bigger community that is continuing to help each other. So, yeah, I have big ideas to make sure that everyone's looked after, including my volunteers. So, if they drop off a meal, they can pick up some more food to take home for themselves or to support them next time. So, yeah, so cash donations are very helpful to help this keep this going, and just more community support, more volunteers. The more, the better.
Do you ever collect from your own pantry downstairs if you need a meal? I mean, I'm just saying, you should, is what I'm saying.
Yes, sometimes I'll be out of canned tomatoes, so I'll run downstairs and get the canned tomatoes.
Good. No, I was just sort of saying it's great that your volunteers have access to that, but make sure that you have access to that too.
And my volunteers are so beautiful too. Sometimes if they know that I've been sick, they will drop off a meal for the family and for me too. So I'm well looked after by my own village, because now that all my friends and family are aware of this idea, they're not only are they helping other people as well, but we all kind of now have got those principles in place with our friendship groups and our family too. It's really beautiful that the volunteers, I'll get a little message that might say the meal's in the fridge and there's one for you too.
Because this is the idea, is that you're generating cultural change.
Yeah.
And so you're also the beneficiary of that, because that's what happens when you care for other people.
Yeah.
There's an interest in caring for each other. Like the interest just grows. And so people can donate through the Buy Me a Coffee button.
Well, there is a Buy Me a Coffee button, and so I'm all new to this, but the Buy Me a Coffee is to support me, to, I guess, just to give me a little bit of juice.
Yeah.
But then there's also another link as well, and that link goes directly into the village fund.
Great.
Yeah. But so there's two links in my link tree. There's two links. One will go to Buy Me a Coffee, or another link to help support the village families directly.
Beautiful. Yeah. And so we will put your Instagram handle in the show notes below. And so that's kind of the hub of things. So people can go there, and we'll also put your Linktree link in there. So maybe for people who aren't on Instagram, can they use the Linktree?
Yes. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay, great. But that's the channel. That's kind of where everything's funneled through. And so if this is a service that you believe in, either consider buying Amy a coffee or donating to the village community, or getting in touch with her to become a volunteer for the service. Or if you want to nominate someone who needs care, that's another way to contribute, because obviously that requires a little fee to nominate a person. But even better is don't add to Amy's workload. You can go ahead and start one yourself, because it's not like there's no need for this. This is a massive cultural and community gap. Everyone will appreciate being looked after, and it'll cycle back. It'll just become part of the culture of who you are and who you are in your community. It shouldn't be depleting if it's working properly. It should be replenishing for everybody.
Yes.
Yes. Are there anything else you wanted to share with us?
I think just to add on to that there is evidence that shows us that when we help another person, so like that idea of being a volunteer and giving to somebody else, it fuels us as well. So yeah, it's not only just about work and doing the work. It's about supporting your own mental health. I've heard something before. I think maybe Lael Stone has said it, that if you're not feeling good, go do something for somebody else. I don't know if it was her. Don't quote me on that one.
That's okay. It's a good quote. We don't know if Lael said it, or she probably would have said something like that. But the idea is, if you don't feel good, go and do something for somebody else. Yeah. And it's an immediate mood boost.
It's all the good hormones that are released, and the chemicals in your brain are just like, it's really delicious and it's yummy, and it's really good to just feel good because you've made somebody else's day, or you've made somebody else just that little bit happier, or their day has become a little bit easier because you've shown them a bit of love.
And this is rebellion against the Western culture of not caring for each other.
Yeah.
So caring for each other, unfortunately, has become countercultural, but we're going to bring it back.
Yes.
Bring it back.
Slowly but surely. That's my life goal.
This is a beautiful example, and I encourage anybody listening to see where they can start it, either at your doorstep with your 2 or 3 closest friends. It doesn't have to be organized like this. It can just be setting a standard, and it's enough.
Yeah, setting the boundaries within your own circle. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Amy. We'll put all the details in the show notes.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Pleasure. We'll see you in the next episode of The Great Birth Rebellion. To get free access to all the research that's used to create each podcast episode, you can join the mailing list at melaniethemidwife.com, or you can join our members hub and financially support the work of this podcast. In the hub, you can ask me questions, and premium members get access to a monthly Q&A episode where I answer listener questions. You'll also get episode transcripts and additional resources for each podcast episode. All the details are in the show notes.